What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So it's been very difficult to find a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series system since they came out in November, and a lot of us have been hoping that as we worked through 2021, maybe like through the summertime, a lot of those component shortages would get worked out. Unfortunately, though, based on some new reports that are showing up online, it looks like it could be quite a bit longer than that, and we'll go over that one here today. Also, out of nowhere yesterday, a video popped up showing full gameplay for a game that was originally canceled on the Sega Dreamcast, this being Castlevania Resurrection, so we'll take a look at that one today as well. Oh, and a game is heading to PlayStation Now that I've been calling for quite a while. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new to the small channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with No More Heroes 3. It's a game that we now know is coming out at the end of August after it was shown with its latest trailer in that Nintendo Direct. So exciting stuff there for No More Heroes fans as we work through the summer towards the fall, where we can finally play the third iteration of the game after having to go through Travis Strikes Again. Either way, though, I was hoping to get more information, maybe some gameplay of this game where Suda just sits down and just kind of shows off different aspects of it, and it looks like we will be getting that chance actually in just a few days, as it was announced that there will be a live stream where Suda will sit down with some guests and talk about and I guess show off No More Heroes 3, and it looks like this will be taking place according to the YouTube page where you can set up the reminder for me, August 8th, 8 a.m. Eastern time. So you'll just want to go through and set up your own reminder and even just go through like a time zone converter to make sure you know when it's going to happen. But exciting stuff there, and hopefully we can see some gameplay for No More Heroes 3 and find out some cool new info on it. Also, we had just talked about the massive sales for Monster Hunter Rise the other day, where Capcom had reported that they shipped, 4 million units already in just a few days. Well, they had to put out some more PR actually for the sales because they keep going up so quickly. We can see this here from Capcom. Monster Hunter Rise surpasses 5 million units globally. Strong unit sales growth supported by positive reception of game concept and new gameplay features. And I do think this game is just going to keep running. Like, they'll keep doing updates, it seems like free updates, adding different monsters, quests, different things to do in the game. And yeah, it's probably just going to continue selling copy after copy after copy. No issues here going throughout the year. And yeah, I do think it's going to end up passing Monster Hunter World, especially if you just line up like PS4, for example, versus Switch. Obviously, Monster Hunter Rise should pass that. But then they also have that PC release coming up. And based on the overall hype and newcomers that Monster Hunter World brought in, I think a lot of those people are moving over and taking a look at Monster Hunter Rise, and obviously it's also affecting Switch sales overall, as we saw in Japan. So big things here for Capcom. Like I said, after they get past that PC release, I do think eventually Monster Hunter Rise will become Capcom's best-selling game overall. Oh, and we did have an update pushed last night to the Switch system, that being a system update 12.0.0, and I know what you're wondering, what exactly did it do? Not a lot. It didn't even mention stability, which is super disappointing, obviously. No profile pictures, definitely no folders though, but we can see this from Oatmeal Dome where they say firmware 12.0.0 has been released. It fixes a bug where automatic Nintendo Switch Online save data backup can be interrupted. Internally, it appears a significant number of OS components have been updated. If there's anything interesting, I'll tweet about it. And what I can tell here is this might have just been a larger back-end update, like maybe just getting things ready for future updates. That's something that Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, they all do this, where they'll put an update out that doesn't appear to do much, but really it just kind of preps things for maybe a larger update down the road. And I guess on top of that, they knew about a bug that was going on. They figured they would fix it with the Nintendo Switch Online and save data backup. So nothing major here, but go ahead and get your Switch updated. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the overall component and chip shortage that is currently happening with the electronics world. It is very difficult right now to manufacture things like the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series, or even the Switch. I mean, think about how you might go to like a Walmart or something and there's maybe some Switch Lite systems, but there's like no regular Switch system. And a lot of that I think has to do with there just being more demand for the regular Switch versus the Switch Lite, but there's certainly no PS5s, Xbox Series systems. It's like nothing. And a lot of that has to do with the overall issues around just getting the parts to build the things. I mean, whether it's the chip or components around the chip, they're all in short supply currently. And there's a lot of things at play here as to why this is. Obviously, with the pandemic, there was actually a surge in demand for a lot of these consumer electronics that were not accounted for by a lot of these different brands and manufacturers and just factories in general. And in fact, from what we are seeing, they're actually at full capacity now, even ramping up overall production to try to keep up, and they just can't. But remember, we also have to go outside of the consumer electronics. We're going to like automotive, like that has been heavily affected by the component shortage now. So everyone's wondering, when can this get figured out? Can it be taken care of in 2021? It actually doesn't look like that's going to be the case. We can head over here, this from Game Rant, where they say Foxconn chairman Young Liu said that the tech manufacturer is likely to ship 10% fewer products than previously expected due to the chip shortage. Another report has reflected Foxconn's expectation that the shortage will last until 2022. According to the report, the demand for computer chips is currently 10% to 30% greater than the output. Due to the limited supply and high demand for AMD and NVIDIA graphics cards, the shortage will likely not be sorted out for another year. I mean, we're talking about PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series systems and the Switch. Don't even get me started on the video card world. Like I said, the RTX 3080 might as well just be made up right now because I've never really seen one on sale for less than like $1,200 at this point. But the other thing to keep in mind, while everyone's talking about like the chip itself, there are a lot of parts around that chip that might not be cost effective for factories to ramp up production and produce more of, because after the pandemic ends and like there might be a fall in overall demand for that part, it could actually lose them money. Take a look at this, for example. This from Bloomberg, Takashi Machizuki, saying shortage of $1 component called display driver IC is causing serious production problems for any products with LCD display, monitors, PCs, game consoles, and cars. Makers want more display driver ICs to assemble their products, but suppliers are not willing to boost their production capacity because the component isn't profitable and demand would evaporate quickly after COVID-19 pandemic. This is the biggest thing here. Obviously, it comes down to money, allocation of parts, who needs the most parts, who's going to give us the most money. And then you have, obviously people like companies like Apple showing up. Yeah, they're going to buy a lot of the parts and provide the majority of the money, so they'll get the majority of the parts. But you get down to like the little things, like you won't even consider that. A lot of people are talking about the chips, but it's like, oh, this little dollar IC could be holding up the whole operation. It's tough. I mean, that's just kind of where we are right now. And it's going to be, like they said, possibly another year plus. We could be mid-2022 and finally getting out of the situation we're in now with the chip shortage, which means we could see limited supply for things like the PS5, the Xbox Series, and the Switch for another year and a half. And that does make me wonder a bit more about that Switch revision, by the way, because we're talking about all of this and Nintendo, like, they could have ordered very few chips for the Switch revision, which, let's say it comes out. Like as these rumors are saying this holiday, it could face the same exact thing that we see with the PS5 now, where it comes out and then it's sold out, and then it's like, where do you even get them anymore? And then naturally scalpers and resellers have a field day online. It's a tough situation. It's one that we kind of just, for us, kind of just wait out. Next up, let's talk about that canceled Dreamcast game, that being Castlevania Resurrection, that just appeared online yesterday. There's this video here that popped up on YouTube, simply titled Castlevania Resurrection Exists, and it's under the account name CVR Exists. And yes, this is them playing a canceled Castlevania game for the Dreamcast. And yeah, it looks like a beta or just some sort of build from, I guess, like just when they were working through development, because there's a whole menu where you go and you basically teleport around rooms. But otherwise, yeah, you can play the game. I mean, you fall into the lava there and you don't get hurt or anything. And according to Polygon for this one, the prototype is a build predating E3 1999, where Castlevania Resurrection got a closed doors demonstration. It's a 3D platform with a very linear approach to its levels. The video shows the build's unidentified finder steering Sonia Belmont through 2 of the 5 stages. In a 2007 interview, Castlevania Resurrection art director Greg Orduyan said that the game was intended internally sabotaged by some people within Konami who had their own agenda. Castlevania Resurrection would have been the first Castlevania game developed by Konami of America. Now they go on further to talk about how when the PS2 came out, that was kind of it for their development with the Dreamcast. They basically moved on and started looking to the PlayStation 2. But wow, this is an interesting situation because I'm looking at that. They show off like a burned disc, right, for the Castlevania Resurrection. And I wonder if they have the file itself like on a computer right now, or if they just have the disc. I hope that if they just got the disc, they've already dumped it, but something tells me they have the overall file and they burn it to a disc and they're dropping it in the Dreamcast here, which means, can they put it out online and let all of us play it? Because obviously with the Dreamcast, if you have the correct file, you should be able to boot it up on a majority of Dreamcast systems. And now we have like the GD EMU where we can just put it on an SD card. I don't really know what the plans are here with this because they've now shown that it exists, and I don't know if they're holding on to it because it's technically worth some money and they might be able to sell it to maybe a group that's doing preservation projects for video games and then maybe they'll release it. This is something really cool that I hope they just put out online. Kind of like when we saw that GoldenEye remaster, right? The remake on the Xbox 360, and then a few days later it dropped online. I'm hoping for a similar situation with this because I would absolutely love to just run through some of these levels and see what could have been with Castlevania Resurrection on the Dreamcast. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation Now, which is a service that I feel like a lot of people still have not signed up for, which we'll look at a poll about that one in a little bit here, but they are adding a game that I've been saying should have gone to Game Pass or PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live Games with Gold or Game Pass already. They're finally making the jump. We can see the headline here. This saying PlayStation Now games for April 2021, Marvel's Avengers, Borderlands 3, and The Long Dark. The Marvel's The Avengers, by the way, will be leaving PlayStation Now starting July 5th, so I guess that they're just doing it for 3 months, maybe to get people hooked before they do things like get Spider-Man or Black Panther out. Either way, though, this is the correct move for a game that needs help. I mean, really it does. Marvel's The Avengers has been having a hard time just keeping its overall population in-game, and despite them talking about things like Spider-Man on the PlayStation, I just don't really see a lot of people that interested in the game anymore. I mean, even when it came out, people were like, okay, I mean, this is kind of fun, I guess, but then they started seeing the game when you finish it and the end game, and they kind of it just fell off like the face of the earth when it came to social media presence for this game. So at least putting it into something like PlayStation Now is a good idea. The right idea would have been putting it into PlayStation Plus, like just outright get more people in. And these companies have to stop thinking about these live service games as we need that upfront charge for this game. You need monthly active users for post-spend after that initial purchase. PlayStation Now is at least a good step, but get it into Game Pass, get it on the PlayStation Plus, start getting it everywhere you can. Otherwise, I think this game will have a hard time surviving down the road. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about an event that Microsoft is reportedly having in the next couple of weeks here called their What's Next for Gaming. We can see this on VGC, where they say ZDNet journalist Mary Jo Foley claims that the game-focused virtual event will take place in the coming weeks to supplement Microsoft's annual Build conference, which is confirmed to take place in May. Since Build is a developer-focused event, it's likely any gaming showcase will be focused on the platform itself rather than games, but Foley notes this is separate from the developer-focused GameStack event listed for April. And I'm kind of leaning that way too. Rather than just being a bunch of games being shown, they could be talking more about the features side of the Xbox ecosystem with Game Pass and xCloud and all of this. They have mentioned several features that they'd be talking about in time, and one of those, I guess, would have been the frame rate boost, the FPS boost they can turn on for certain games. It'll go from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second for some of these backwards compatible games, and it does seem that Microsoft is continuing to look heavily into backwards compatibility, and I would like to hear about things like extra effects being added to older games like original Xbox or Xbox 360, like ray tracing, for example. There are some cool things that I'm sure they could do there with that, and xCloud, but who knows, maybe they want to debut a game, talk a bit more about the technology in that game, and then really roll into what their plans are for the rest of the year with these features. And we've also heard those rumors and talks about Discord maybe being purchased by Microsoft. Maybe there's a bit of an explanation around that one. There's a lot of things that could happen here in the coming weeks, and we'll just have to keep our eyes out. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're here with a poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, are you currently subscribed to PlayStation Now? 9% of you said yes, 91% of you said no. What I should have asked is, do you think the PlayStation Now was all streaming? Because I still see people say that, whereas you can actually download like probably 60 to 70% of the games on PlayStation Now. None of the PS3 games, but basically everything else, the PS4 and the PS2 games, you can. And it's just because it's a service that Sony really doesn't talk that much about, but then they'll throw the Avengers on there rather than on PlayStation Plus. It's very strange. Obviously, when we did the Game Pass poll, there were more people sign up to Game Pass than what we see here with PlayStation Now, and that just comes down to the marketing and how much, I guess, harder we're getting a push for Game Pass from Microsoft with their first-party games, and even some of these third-party games from Sony even going to the service. So once again, a year from now, I'll do this poll and we'll see if it shifts at all. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from It's Alex saying, the thumbnail almost gave me a heart attack. Thought the trilogy would head to Switch. No, you'll know all about that. When the trilogy gets announced for the Switch, we might go all caps for that title that day. It'll be like the end of an era, right? For the Metroid Prime trilogy finally coming out after us talking about it for a while now. But I do think we are at least in the year that makes sense for Nintendo to start pushing some Metroid stuff out there. Like, we're in the anniversary year for it. So I guess they could put out like a 2D Metroid. They could do something with Metroid Prime Trilogy and then work their way to Metroid Prime 4, which I do believe is coming out next year. So what a ride it's been just for Metroid Prime 4, going from like a JPEG at E3 2017 to finally coming out 5 years or so later. Either way though, here's hoping that Nintendo has a big year planned for Metroid with the anniversary, although they might just tweet something out and acknowledge it, and I guess technically that'd be a step up. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's the component shortage that's leading to the overall console shortage for the PS5, the Xbox, and the Switch. Let me know your overall experiences trying to find any of these systems right now. And then what about this Castlevania Resurrection game just kind of appearing online with this early build? I'm hoping it gets dropped online, but let me know what you think about all of that. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.